Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast, coming at you live on a Thursday. Jel and Josh in the house. We got your championship weekend preview, Drew Locks, and the mailbag. Got some fun questions in there, NFL themed. But speaking of questions, Jel, question of the day. Gonna set the scene here a little bit for you and put this on blast and just kind of see if there's any necessarily reason for it. But were you a Fox Prairie or Yahara?
Oh, Fox Prairie all day,
Fox
baby.
Prairie, you betcha.
With your brother.
Well, we can both picture ourselves sitting in third grade at Fox Prairie and the teacher up in front of the class talking about a topic that was pertinent to our learning that we were going to have to do for the rest of our lives.
I know where you're
Why
going.
in the fuck did we have to learn cursive other than signing our name?
I knew it.
For real. Sorry, we're going to have to throw the explicit tag. We earned that one early this episode, but for real, why did we need to learn cursive?
Did they think computers were existent at that time? It's not like we were still on typewriters.
Oregon Trail.
Like, oh, hell yeah. That game rocked. Oregon Trail. What was the other one? Carmen Sandiego.
Yep.
Like, let's go. So like everybody had computers at home too. Like they would require us to, they would either assume like either your parents have a computer or you need to like go to the library and like do some stuff like print out, like for printing stuff out and that kind of stuff. Like computers existed. Did they not think that we were going anywhere with these? Like, did they think we were going to be writing handwritten notes like we were Edgar Allan Poe? Like, what are we doing here? So the only thing that we got out of that is for writing our signature, which we could have figured out in like art class or something. Like we spent a lot of time trying to learn cursive. When's the last time you wrote a cursive Z? Probably third grade.
Probably.
Like, what a waste of time and effort and energy.
And not even computers. It's like, even just in my everyday writing, it's so much easier and more convenient to go through and just write normal print. And
so much easier to read. I don't know
anyone that even uses cursive. And if I did, and I'd have to like, well, what the hell does this say? Like, no, I don't remember because nobody writes with it anymore. Like, come on.
It's like hieroglyphics at this point.
Right. What does that symbol mean? It's going to rain? What? Just stupid. But yeah, anything else from school that you can think of that was just stupid? I mean, pretty much
there's a lot
to this
of
point,
there's a lot
calculators.
of it's like learning how to do long division. Why? I don't know. I guess the whole point of it was like, I don't know, there's no point to cursive. That was the most useless thing we probably learned. Long division, I guess, like so that you can learn how math works. Maybe that's kind of the point of that. And the lattice method of multiplication. Did you ever do the lattice method where you had to draw the box and, and use diagonal lines and do all this weird stuff? Just some asinine stuff, but I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm just, doing a podcast rather than solving, doing rocket science instead.
Right.
That's what I'll blame it on. I'll blame it on elementary school.
Right. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. When you go to YouTube, don't type Dead Arm Sports in cursive into that search bar. Type it in print.
How would you do? Imagine if every key on your laptop was written cursive letters.
Oh, nope.
I would have no idea what to do with the letter Q. I don't even know. What is it? What is a Q? I guess I kind of know. But
yeah, it's like the backwards loop, and then the bottom's like a backwards
back and touches, like gives the circle a little kiss, and then it jets out.
Maybe that's
like most of my dates.
one of these QOTDs, I'm gonna say write down every letter in the alphabet quick and see who the first one is that can get them all right.
That's thrilling audio.
Yes, just amazing audio. On YouTube, make sure you subscribe, click the bell. That way you know when our live episodes drop. We monitor that chat box. You can ask us any questions there. Otherwise, if you miss out, Jel can be found at DasJel. That's at DASJEL. I can be found at DasJPEC. That's at DASJPEC. Hit us up. Give us a follow. Follow us at Dead Arm Sports. Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot of that written review. We will get you some swag for free. Hard to believe NFL Championship weekend is here. We are 2.5 weeks away from the Super Bowl, which seems just crazy. It seems like we were just previewing the season and how excited we were for it, and it's winding down slowly. But first game up on the slate this weekend, NFC Championship game in Philadelphia, 49ers at Eagles. Eagles coming in as 2.5-point favorites in this one. I guess with that thrashing that they just gave the Giants, does that line surprise you at all, Jel? I mean, San Francisco's defense has played phenomenal this postseason, so I'm very curious to see that 49ers defense versus that Philadelphia offense. I think that's one of the matchups I'm looking forward to the most, but does that line surprise you at all with how easily Philly was moving that ball last week and just kind of how the 49ers offense struggled a little bit against the Cowboys last week? Or do you think this line's appropriate?
I think it's a perfect line. I think it's exactly where I would have put it if I were an odds maker. These are the two best rosters in the NFL. Not the two best quarterbacks, but the two best rosters in the NFL. That and they're both extremely physical. I see it being a low-scoring game. We might be looking at a 17-14, a 17-16 type of a 20-17. Maybe somehow, maybe it's 17-18 because somebody goes for two somewhere in some weird spot. Sirianni, you never know what he's gonna do. So I think it's a perfect line. I see this being a 2 to 3 point game. Right now, it's at, like you said, -2.5 in favor of Philly. I could see it being a 2 to 3 point game. So this is exactly where I'd have it. You've got, I mean, and really look, I mean, these two teams are extremely similar. Best offensive line in all of football in Philly. You've got, you know, a likely Hall of Famer in Lane, probably almost a lock already, Hall of Famer in Lane Johnson as your right tackle, Jason Kelce on his way to being a Hall of Famer as your center, first team All-Pro, versus San Francisco's offensive line, Trent Williams at left tackle, who's probably the best left tackle in the game right now. Mike McGlinchey, another good tackle, first round pick, not a great first round pick, but still a good starting right tackle. They're both teams very run heavy. I mean, Kyle Shanahan and Sirianni, as well as Jalen Hurts, Christian McCaffrey, you've got weapons for days in that running game. Shanahan's running scheme is undefeated. I mean, it's okay, not undefeated literally, but it's one of the best running schemes we've ever seen. He obviously got it from his daddy, Mike, who invented that zone blocking scheme. And Kyle's taken that running scheme to another level. Somehow it seems like the Niners, there's always just on every run play, somehow they have an extra offensive lineman, it seems like. I don't know how.
Right.
There's just always one extra guy that's blocking.
Juice.
So I love it. I'm really looking forward to this matchup. I think this is gonna be a hell of a game. And it's old school football, man. It's not just air raid, throw it out, let's whip it around and go for, you know, a 45-38 type of game. It's old school physical football, you know, and that's what works in the playoffs. Refs aren't calling, they won't be calling ticky tack, you know, pass interferences, roughing the passer. They might let these guys hold a little bit more. They'll let these corners be more physical with these receivers. Both teams have stud wide receivers and, you know, just pass catchers out of the backfield. in, Kenneth Gainwell, Miles Sanders, we'll see his role in this game. It'll be interesting to see what kind of a factor he plays versus Shanahan, Christian McCaffrey, best all around back, I think, in the game right now. At least in terms of what he can do on, both the receiving and in the running back, just traditional rushing the ball. Elijah Mitchell, great compliment to McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith having a real nice breakout season. Dallas Goedert was a huge factor in last week's game. So I think these are two really, really nicely just rosters as a whole, really nice balanced teams, and including defensively. I mean, Fred Warner, probably the best linebacker in the game. Darius Big Play Slay, one of the best corners in the game. He ended up being an all-pro. So you just got playmakers on both sides of the ball. These are the two best rosters in football as a whole. Robbie Good as gold. Shit, he may be the best kicker. He's the best kicker that's left in the playoffs. He might be there right behind Justin Tucker as the number 2 kicker in the game. Sorry, Bears fans. I'm sure you miss him.
One of the dumbest decisions ever.
I never understand why you get rid of a kicker to try to save yourself $500K or $1 million. I never get it.
That's the Bears.
Now you've been rotating through kickers since you let him go. So how do you feel about that one? I think it's a perfect line at 2.5 in favor of Philly. Are you asking me to make my pick now, or do you have let's go through your kind of opening thoughts on this game, and then we'll break down our picks in a little bit.
Sounds good. Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said with it. I think it is a good line. I think it's going to be a close game, and it's one of those rare years, rare years so far where I think all 4 teams that are left in the playoffs were the best 4 teams throughout the course of the season.
Absolutely.
Think that they all were consistent. Yes, San Francisco started off a little bit slow, but they're just kind of feeling things out with Trey Lance. Obviously, he went down with that injury. Jimmy G get thrown in, then Brock Purdy. And the adversity that they've had to go through just shows a lot from them, which is awesome. But I don't know. That Eagles team has been rolling. They rolled last week and were putting up a lot of points. I think Jalen Hurts is going to have to throw the ball in this one. That's what concerns me a little bit. We didn't see a ton last week, so is he going to be a little bit rusty? Yes, he threw a touchdown pass, but didn't really need to throw the ball a lot. I mean, they're running all over the place, and they're not going to get that with San Francisco's defensive front. But I think the 49ers defense is going to be the deciding factor in this one. And I think the 49ers are going to be the NFC champion this year. So I'm going to take 49ers in this one. And I like them making the Super Bowl.
I think that the difference here is going to be Brock Purdy versus Jalen Hurts. And I'm going to take Jalen in this one. He's been right there within, up in the top. He's going to end up finishing probably number 2 in the MVP vote to Patrick Mahomes. And we saw his value even more when he was out, when Gardner Minshew was in. That Eagles team looked nothing like the stud team that they were before he was injured. Those 2 games when Minshew had to come in, not the same Eagles team. It just shows me how big of an impact Jalen Hurts has on this team. I'm going to take Philly. I'm going to suck it up and take the, minus 2.5. I'm going to have them covering the spread as well. And I think we're looking at we're looking at Philly being in with the Phillies as World Series contenders and Super Bowl contenders. That was a really poorly worded sentence there, but you get the picture, I hope.
Got there eventually, yes. And then you got followed up by the AFC Championship game. You got Bengals Chiefs. And I mean, we all know what the main storyline in this one is. What is the health of Patrick Mahomes? We're recording here on a Tuesday, so when you're listening to this, probably got a little bit more information, but I don't think he's, like you had said last episode, Jel, he's not going to be practicing much, if at all, this week. Not that he really needs to. I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes. He's on the same page with all of his receivers, one of the best quarterbacks improvising in the game. But that's a huge thing. What's his mobility going to be? They're going to have that ankle, I'm sure, heavily taped up. So you can't imagine he's going to be very mobile in this one. But what are some of your things here? I mean, if you're the Bengals, knowing his injury, I mean, I'd be sending the house on almost every play, every obvious passing down. And I think the Chiefs are really going to have to switch up their game plan in this one and try and get that ball quickly out of Mahomes' hands to avoid that pass rush. I mean, if he's holding onto the ball, trying to let stuff develop, if I'm the Bengals, I'm blitzing. I'm sending 1-2 guys, put some pressure on him, and he's not going to be very mobile getting out of the pocket, one of his strengths with that. So I think the Chiefs need to find a way to maximize getting that ball out quickly.
We saw what happened to that USC offense when Caleb Williams had his ankle injury against that very physical, tough Utah defense. And what Utah did was, a lot of times when if you're going to rush Caleb Williams, you have to rush the edges up the middle and have a spy. It's kind of the same deal with Mahomes, where you can't just blitz up the middle because he is so elusive and able to get around on the outside when fully healthy. I think that there's going to have to be a massive change in Kansas City's offensive philosophy, knowing that if Cincinnati's smart, you just bum rush 4 guys at him, and knowing that he's not going to be able to escape the same way that he normally can. So you almost attack him the same way that you would a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning at this, back at the end of his career, where you can just bum rush up the middle. And what Brady and Manning were great at was getting rid of the ball really quickly, being extremely quick on their feet, making those quick decisions, and being extremely accurate with the ball. Mahomes has never had to be that type of a player. A lot of his game, like you said, is that kind of that improvising and getting flushed out of the pocket and making dynamic plays. We're not going to see that this game. And it's a little bit disappointing because I think we're looking at the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now in Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. Sucks that one's only going to be at 65% of his normal self. I mean, if we're being totally honest, he's still going to have the arm. He's still going to have the, be able to make those random spectacular throws. But we saw him miss some throws in last week's game. That ankle was bothering him. He's not going to be able to run around as much. It's his plant foot too, so he's not going to have the same strength behind his throws. I'm pretty concerned about it, man. I really am. And this is the kind of stuff where, if you don't have that full lower body strength, that's when you start to overcompensate with your arm. And that's what leads to overthrows, which can lead to picks, overthrows that end up right in these safeties' laps. So I think we might be looking at a 2-interception game from Mahomes here. Cincinnati's a 2-point favorite. They're on the road. I'm going to get straight to my pick at this point, and I'm taking Cincy with suck up the 2 points. I'm going with the 2 favorites here. And I want to see if Mahomes can be Superman. I kind of hope he can, because it would make for a much more entertaining game. But I'm going to take Cincy here with the points. And just because, God, Burrow's got something about him. Mahomes in a limited fashion. I mean, they're going to be relying a lot more on guys like McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, who have been nice this season, but they've been nice also with the threat of knowing, with the defense having to understand that they're facing a 100% Patrick Mahomes. It's not the same. It's not the same without him being 100%. That defense is going to hone in on the running game, hone in on the middle of the field. Mahomes, think of some of those Mahomes, some of his best plays are him just rolling out and, finding in the Super Bowl, finding Tyreek Hill after a busted play and 45 yards down the field. Like, those are some of the best plays in Mahomes' career. He's not going to be able to do that. It's going to have to be a very much more methodical game plan from Kansas City this game than probably what they're used to. So and Joe Burrow, I think, is just, that guy's the real deal. He's proven to me that he's right there with Mahomes at the top of the league in terms of quarterback play. He's got something about him. He's got this, do you call it cockiness, or do you call it just like extreme confidence in a, like there's such a fine line between confidence and cockiness. I don't know if he does it. I don't know if he's quite a dick yet, enough of a dick to call him cocky, where I think he's still in that like young, he's got that young confidence about him. And I like that. I think that's true young confidence, or true confidence, versus like Baker, who Baker was just a cocky jackass like back in Cleveland. Yeah. So Joe Cool, I'm going to ride him. I'm going to ride with him. Not going to ride him myself.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. These two teams faced off in the regular season in Cincinnati, and with a healthy Patrick Mahomes, they were able to limit him to 223 yards through the air. So they're not going to have a healthy Patrick Mahomes in this one. And I think Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, like you said, has been on a roll lately. Their offense seems to be pretty hot right now, and I think that's where I'm going to lie with this one. As much as I want to take the Chiefs and try and climb back in this one in our points race here, you have a 2-0 lead on me. I can't. It's the Bengals just seem destined for the Super Bowl again this year, and probably would be the favorite at this point in time, depending on who they play. Maybe the Eagles would be if they got matched up, but I see the Bengals winning this one. I don't know if it's really going to be close.
Where do you think this line would be if Mahomes was 100%?
Probably flip to 2-point favorites.
You think it'd still just be 2 for KC?
I think that's why it's where it's at right now, obviously, is because of Mahomes' health. But the way that the Bengals have been playing, they beat them earlier this year. They won here last year.
Joe Burrow's 4-0 against the Chiefs.
So, yeah.
4-0. That's insane.
You ain't scared.
Patrick Mahomes here. I'm out here. I'm gonna just fight for my team. I'll be out here all week, and really making sure that I give it my all. My buddy Travis Kelce, I'm banking on him having a really nice week. I know I'm facing one of the best in the league, and Joe Burrow. We're two of the best out here. But I trust Andy. I trust the staff. I trust the medical team out here, and I'm out here to fight. My name is Patrick Mahomes.
Is it Patrick Mahomes or Kermit the Frog?
Same thing.
Is Miss Piggy there?
Oink oink.
Anything else?
She's in the bedroom.
Oh, jeez. Well, we already threw that explicit tag out there.
That's right.
Anything else from this one before we jump into our Drew locks?
I can't imagine. We had our super wild card weekend, which was super. It was exhausting. There was a lot of football, but it was mostly all amazing football. Last weekend, let's be honest, not great, kind of boring.
Super duper pooper.
Super duper pooper. I think we're in for a treat this weekend. Especially that NFC game, San Fran Philly. I think that's going to be that may end up being the game of the year. Again, low scoring. It might not be the prettiest football, but a lot of times that's, I like kind of having some of those throwback games. It was kind of nice seeing a low scoring, constant one possession game in that San Fran Dallas game last weekend. So I'm thinking it's going to be the same here. The difference is we get an actual good football team in Philly versus a garbage football team in Dallas. So I think that's going to be the best game of the weekend. Cincy KC.
If I come out here and play At 100%, I think we have a really good chance. My name is Patrick Mahomes.
All right. Enough of that.
Moving into our playoff Drew locks. If you're new to the show, each week, Jill and I keep fantasy points for quarterback, wide receiver, running back, tight end, playoff edition. So it restarted. Once you use a player, you cannot use them again. So you're kind of trying to strategize teams that might not advance any farther and wanting to have guys left when it comes time to the Super Bowl, essentially at some of those key positions. But got a slim lead last week. Jill got the victory over you, 26.68, 25.67. So I'm up by, I think, like 4 to 5 points right now. I don't have it right in front of me, but yeah, I got first pick this week, and I'm going to go with the hot hand in Cincy in Joe Mixon. I think I'm going to roll there. Chiefs have been giving up some points on the ground. I think this one's going to be pretty decent. So I'm going to go with Mixon. Might even get a receiving touchdown in this one. I think he's going to be an integral part of Cincinnati getting back into the championship game, into the Super Bowl. So I like Joe Mixon.
I'm going to ride
Patrick Mahomes'
best friend in the receiving game, and I'm going to go Travis Kelce. I think that, like I said, it's going to be a limited play call sheet, and Kelsey's going to just have a really nice day. It's going to be probably a lot more short passing. He's going to rack up a ton of receptions and hopefully get me another 100-yard game that he did last week. So banking on that and a touchdown.
Nice.
Travis Kelce, baby.
Do you want to do that voice again for me, Joe? Because that is who I am going to take for my quarterback.
Oh, you believe in me?
I do. I think he'll be all right. I don't expect a huge game here, but I'm going to roll with Patrick Mahomes in this one.
All right. Taking care of that backfield. I'm going to flip over to the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm looking for a big day from AJ Brown here. I think that's I know Devonta Smith has kind of been the hot hand. AJ had a weird week last week. We saw him kind of pouting, it looked like, at the end of that Giants game. And I don't know why, because they were up by like 30 at the time, but maybe this is going to help force Jalen to get him the ball. Like you mentioned earlier, I think that Philly's going to be forced to throw the ball a little bit more than they have had to recently, especially last week against the Giants. And AJ has just been a stud. I know Devonta Smith has been awesome all season, or especially late in the season, but got off to a massive start in that Giants game last week. But I think AJ is a true number one. He's a top. God, there's so many good receivers. I wanted to go top 3, but I'll just say top 5 receiver in the game. I think he's going to have a big day here.
I like it.
And I mean, on top of that too, we saw CeeDee Lamb go off last week. He was the only really good Cowboy last week. I believe CeeDee ended up with like 9 catches. I could see the same production out of AJ this weekend.
I'm going to go with AJ Brown's teammates in this one, and I'm going to go with Dallas Goedert. Dalton Schultz could have had a decent game last week, especially on that last drive, but ended up finding the end zone in this one. And I think Dallas Goedert could be a deciding factor in this one with that tight end. San Francisco, it is one area that they are a little susceptible to a good receiving tight end. And Dallas Goedert has shown flashes at times, hasn't had the season or career up to this point that we have thought that he was capable of, but I think he could end up finding the end zone this week.
But you're right. He had a great game last weekend. So I love the pick. My number 3 overall pick, I'm going to move over to the running back position. I'm going to go Christian McCaffrey. Too good to pass up. I have to go CMC here. So lock it in, Mr. McCaffrey.
I like it. Last position for me is the wide receiver position, and I'm going to go with probably the best wide receiver that's left up to this point with the 4 teams, and that's Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, I think, is going to have a big day in this one against that Chiefs defense, and I'll throw him in the lineup this week.
we will flip-flop our wide receivers and quarterbacks from last week, because I'm going to go Mr. Joe Burrow, Joey Ice, or whatever they call him, Joe Cool. I'm going to lock in Burrow here. So those are the 4 guys. I'm going out there. Joe Burrow, Christian McCaffrey, AJ Brown, Travis Kelce. You are rolling out there Patrick Mahomes, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, and Dallas Goedert. I like it. I like it. These are the 4 guys that I written down, and I got them all. So happy camper over here.
Attaboy. All right. It is mailbag time. I will go ahead and just kind of going to have just kind of a grab bag of different items for you, running from different quarterbacks, people on the hot seat, trade value of some players. And we're just going to kind of go back and forth here with kind of just going over different questions and everything that we have going into this off season. Not really any huge news or anything else. So we figured this would be a perfect time to kind of hit some of those topics. We haven't really been able to squeeze into too many episodes up to this point, but thought that we would go ahead and bring you a segment here. So for the next half hour or so, just going to kind of run through going back and forth with different questions. And guess I'll go ahead and kick it off in this one. And my first question for you, Jel, in this mailbag is, this offseason, what is the more intriguing division, the AFC South or the NFC South? You've got the Jags, who are pretty much the only established team, but the AFC, you've got Indy with questions, Houston with questions, Tennessee with questions, and then the South is just a shit show. If Tom Brady doesn't come back, you've got 4 teams there that don't have established quarterbacks at all. So which one are you going to be following a little bit more, intrigues you a little bit more this offseason?
I'm going to be following one team and one player. That's the Saints, and that's Tom Brady, and one coach, Sean Payton. Can we do this? Can we bring Sean Payton back to the Saints? Can we get Tom Brady over to New Orleans?
Ooh.
Brady knows that division. He'd have, I'd say his best coach of his career, but he's got Belichick. But at least in offense, the best offensive coach he's ever had. The Saints don't have to trade Sean Payton. Payton also doesn't have to come back.
What's that?
What do you do with Dennis Allen, though, right now?
Screw Dennis Allen.
I know.
Get rid of his ass. Put him back in defensive coordinator. Send him to the Wolves. I don't give a shit about Dennis Allen. Let him go go hit up LinkedIn. Who gives a shit about Dennis Allen if you have Sean Payton? And if that's what it takes to get Tom Brady, you could be. Chris Olave looks like a stud. Maybe Michael Thomas actually stays healthy and can. I'm not going to say he's going to return to his, what was it? God, how long ago was that amazing season? 2019? Does that sound right?
Pre-COVID, yeah.
Jeez, good. Come on, MT. So 2019, or maybe it was even 18. Again, not saying he's going to return to that type of a player, but he's a nice possession receiver that Tom Brady would like. You'd have your downfield threat and stud young receiver in Chris Olave. Probably need to do a little bit of work at the tight end position, but you do have a really big tight end, at least in Juwan Johnson, that maybe Brady could make work. And like you said, that division sucks. Imagine how bad Tampa's going to be next year. They're going to be terrible.
Yeah.
Carolina doesn't have a quarterback or a coach unless trade back for Baker. What is, they don't have a solution there. And the Falcons, Desmond Ridder, he looked bad. So, and unless they want to put Mariota back behind center, you might see, there were the rumors of Brady and Sean Payton teaming up in Miami before, Brady decided to stay and the whole tampering piece. So they've talked about pairing together in the past. Think about it. Think about it.
The only thing that throws me off a little bit with that is Sean Payton took time away and stepped away. I don't know that is he really want to come back in for like a 2-year run with Tom Brady and then have to figure it all out again. I think he'd rather go into a spot that he can get his next Drew Brees and have a long run of success and maybe have a nice Super Bowl window there where, yeah, I mean, it would be nice to find the right situation, team up with Tom Brady, give it a go. But long-term wise for Sean Payton, no, I don't know. That's a good 2-year window there, but then that's about it.
But I believe that's the length of his contract as well. So he could go for
With
that
the Saints,
2-year
yeah.
run, and then he's a free agent again. Saints could, and if the Saints want to offer him a ton of money to stay, maybe they do that again and he does stick around. But I don't know. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but think about it, because I haven't seen that rumor out there much. I've seen Sean Payton linked with all these other teams, but him and Mickey Loomis, the GM of the Saints, still have a nice relationship. They've talked all off season. Just a couple weeks ago, Sean Payton was on the Herd and was talking and said to Colin, it's going to probably take at least a mid-round first. So the Broncos, yeah, they might want to hire Sean Payton. Is the Bradley Chubb pick enough which they got from Miami? Maybe, but you're going to have to pony up something for Payton. And if Tom Brady goes there, why wouldn't Sean Payton stick around? And like you said, maybe it's only a 1 or 2 year run, but they could run the South at least for a season or two.
Yeah.
So and then as far as the AFC South, I'm not really interested. That division is such a shit show. I think the Jags are going to be able to run that division for the next 3 years. So if not further.
Yeah. The only thing that intrigues me with the AFC South is I am curious to see what Houston ends up doing in the draft in this offseason because of the young talent that they have. They have a ton of draft capital the next few years. So that does intrigue me a little bit to see what route they go there.
All right. I'm going to stay. I guess I'm going to kick it over to, or turn this into a quarterback conversation. Shocker. Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, their big money extensions kick in after this season. Joe Burrow he's owed a big deal. I'm not saying he would hold out, but he's owed a big deal. Well, how do you see this playing out, I guess, next year when you've got all that money tied up to these quarterbacks, really huge dollars tied up with these teams next year? Do you still see those 3 teams being at the top of the AFC? Do you see some other team, maybe a Jacksonville type of a team, sneaking in there into that top 3? I mean, the Bills have a lot of guys. You've got a lot of big money guys, and Stephon Diggs, Jordan Poyer's going to get a raise. His contract takes a big jump. Stephon Diggs, big money player. Von Miller is making a ton of money. Shocker, he got hurt again. So you've got there's a lot of decisions that are going to need to be made in Buffalo. Kansas City, the reason they had to make that Tyreek Hill deal is because they straight up weren't going to be able to afford to give him a contract. 2 of their starting offensive linemen, I believe it's both their offensive tackles, are free agents this upcoming season.
Yeah,
can you afford to pay Orlando Brown another big deal contract when Mahomes, his big deal comes in? And then the Bengals, they've been blessed with that Joe Burrow rookie contract over the first 3 seasons. If he comes out and says, I need $45 million plus, which he deserves, how are they going to be able to surround these stud quarterbacks with enough players? 3 of the 4 teams in this conference championship round have quarterbacks on rookie deals. So I guess, how do you see that AFC playing out with all that money that's going to be tied up now with the top 3 quarterbacks in the league.
I hate talking about this team when they're not relevant right now, but I think you have to kind of go how the Packers have done things over the year. Aaron Rodgers has always been one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league, and they've just hit so well in the draft. And that's what you have to focus on is, yes, you keep around the guys that you can, Devontae Adams, so Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, like those guys, Travis Kelce and KC, favorite targets of the quarterback. But then as far as the offensive line goes, you're not able to afford to keep any of these guys. And you just have to keep hitting in the draft with that and just ride out their rookie deals and then just kind of keep repeating the process. I mean, obviously, if you're paying a quarterback that much money, which that's the direction that the NFL's gone. If you have a decent quarterback, they're making a huge chunk of your salary cap for that season, which that's just how it is. And that's why, like you said, we've seen 3 out of the 4 quarterbacks right now are on rookie deals that are in the playoffs this weekend. And that's the bread and butter for your Super Bowl window. And then after that, it's just hitting in the draft and getting key pieces that way. I mean, because you're not able to afford guys, or maybe somebody comes off of an injury and you're giving them kind of a 1-year prove it type deal, which you don't see a ton in the NFL anymore, but that's pretty much what they're going to have to do when you have that much money tied up into that quarterback position, which, again, I mean, being a Bears fan, I wish we were in an opportunity where we could tie up a bunch of money in a quarterback down the road.
I don't understand how the Bears have still somehow not been able to maneuver cap space while not paying their quarterback since Jay Cutler. I don't get it. How, I mean, I guess they had money tied up in like Khalil Mack and Allen Robinson.
There's a lot on the defense too. I mean, you look at,
are they still paying Lance
Briggs? I mean, there's a ton of guys, Peanut Tillman. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of guys on that team that were making money. I mean, when Cutler was there too, you had Brandon Marshall that was there at wide receiver. I mean, there's guys that had big contracts, but but like you said, that's what I think you have to do. I mean, for Cincinnati right now, Joe Mixon probably is not going to be in the future in a couple of years from now. I mean, he's getting up there as far as running back age goes. So that'll be a little bit of a contract that falls off, but you're going to have to figure out a way to keep Jamar Chase there too. When his deal comes up in a couple of years. T Higgins. Yeah.
I mean, and Higgins has 1 year less on his deal than Chase.
Yep.
So that's going to be tricky. The difference I think here though, is like, these are, I mean, can we say these are the top 3 quarterbacks in the league at least, or at least 3 of the top 4 or 5?
3 of the top 5 at worst case. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, those are the guys that you want to pay. The mistake is when you give a guy like Dak Prescott top 3 in the league money and he can barely crack the top 10 in terms of quarterbacks, maybe number 12 to 14, kind of in that shit. I was going to say in that Kirk Cousins range. Throw it right at Kirk Cousins too. I mean, middle of the pack, just above average quarterback that can get you to the playoffs and no further. So that's the mistake that you can make as a GM, is if you do give one of these middle of the road, above average quarterbacks a huge deal, because you're just so afraid of having to start over. And that's where I go back to the Giants and Daniel Jones, where, God damn it, have the balls to go and, get yourself a rookie and start that quarterback clock over. Because do you really want to be the Vikings, barely making the playoffs with a 18 to 22 draft pick every single year, not really being able to truly upgrade your squad that much? I think that this wasn't part of the question, but I think that that's part of the reason why I think the Giants do need to kind of cut the cord here with Daniel Jones. How much better is he going to be than a rookie coming in? Better, but is he going to get you to the promised land like any of these 3 quarterbacks can? Absolutely not. So I don't know. These are the 3 guys that are worth paying big dollars for, but don't fall into the Cowboys issue right now where you're stuck with Dak to get one playoff win, maybe a season.
Yeah. All right, let's throw a fun one in here, Joe. It's kind of off the wall. I want to know your personal top 3 teams that are the current favorites for the 2024 number 1 pick. We haven't had free agency or draft at all, but what 3 franchises are you calling out right now saying, hey, I think you're in the running for that number 1 pick?
I mean, like, I think I have to put Chicago in there. If they go Will Anderson here with that number 1 pick, okay, well, that does nothing for Justin Fields. I don't know how much I can trust Uberflus as a head coach yet. I mean, we saw Brian Daboll come in and turn that Giants team that had 2 top 8 picks in last year's draft into a playoff team and get a win. Matt Eberflus took a team that sucked into the number 1 overall pick. So I don't know how much I can trust Eberflus here going into this season. I know that Fields showed some bright spots, and that's nice. That's great. But even if they go heavy on wide receiver, heavy on offensive line, those guys are going to be rookies this year. And, if you go heavy in the draft there, a lot of times it takes more than just a year. It could take 2-3 years for these offensive linemen to develop in the NFL. So unless they go out and do kind of what Miami did and pay for a bunch of high-end offensive linemen in free agency, I don't see much relief for Justin Fields. I got to put the Bears in there. I'll go Panthers as well. I guess it might depend if they do end up somehow getting a quarterback, or, maybe they end up with the Derek Carr type. Maybe they end up with Sean Payton and Derek Carr teaming up. Payton he interviewed with Carolina this week for, I believe, a second time. So he's clearly got some interest there. And I'm sure David Tepper, the owner, one of the richer owners in the NFL, doesn't give a shit about what he has to pay to get Sean Payton. So I think that might be it. That if that happens, that probably takes Carolina out of the running a little bit for that number 1 or a top 3 pick. But right now they don't have a quarterback. If they run out there Sam Darnold again, you're looking at a 4-13 squad max. So I think they're going to be in contention for that top 3 pick. And the Colts are so damn dysfunctional. If Jeff Saturday's there, if they end up hiring Jeff Saturday, it sounds like there's a lot of buzz out there that Jeff Saturday might be their guy. Jim Irsay, figure this out. You can't hire Jeff Saturday just because he's your buddy. But if they do, the Colts are doomed. So I'll go with Bears, Panther. I guess 3 teams that have top 9 picks, I believe, in this draft. I think they all might be sitting there again next year with top 3 picks. Even if the Colts do end up drafting at the 4 spot, a Will Levis or something. Will Levis ain't ready to start day 1. He's not going to make a difference day 1. So I think Indy's in there too.
I've got 3 different teams here. I think Houston's going to fall in there again. I know they're going to get their quarterback of the future this year, but they're going to have a really young team, and they could end up a route very similar to, I'm not saying that the quarterback they draft is going to be Trevor Lawrence, but could be similar to the Jags, where you draft your quarterback, get the number 1 pick again the next year, and then see what you got working that next year there. They've got the draft capital the next couple of years, so they could be a team that ends up making big improvements there. But I don't see a rookie quarterback coming in next year with what they have and being able to get out of the bottom 5 of the league for sure. Another team is Atlanta. What is Atlanta doing right now?
Good. Okay. That's a big miss by me.
Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder. They don't have a number 1 wide receiver. Drake London was better at the end of the year, but what is Kyle Pitts even? He hasn't Granted, he was hurt this last year, but he didn't look good up until that point. The defense, well, we all know their defense blowing leads since what 2017. I mean, Jesus. And then I think the third team is without Tampa Tom.
Oh,
What does Tampa Bay look like next year? I mean, you've got playoff Lenny, who didn't look good. We'll see what
heavy Lenny.
Heavy Leonard, yeah. Mike Evans, what a terrible year he had for the most part this year. Chris Godwin took a step back, it seemed like, as well. I mean, their defense is getting up there in age as well. I think you're going to see a huge rehaul there that could end up leading them into the pick in the top 5. So those are 3 teams I look at right now that are like, I don't know if they're going to be very good. And I don't really see a way that they're going to be good. And even free agency wise, I mean, Atlanta's problem, quarterback, I don't know how you're going to solve that. Houston, like I said, I think they'll just be a young team and just kind of developing and working together under a first year coach, kind of trying to come together. And then again, Tampa Bay without Tom, what are you doing for your quarterback? I mean, those are probably Band-Aid spots. I mean, none of them really have any draft capital to go out and get one of these top guys this year, unless you trade up and trade away a huge chunk of the future. But I don't know.
Yeah, Atlanta, that was a big miss by me. I think that they're destined to I'm surprised they aren't already in the top 3 right now. They somehow were able to put enough wins together in
probably just because their
weird ways, especially early in the season. But yeah, that division is that might be the Falcons' downfall in not being able to get the number 1 pick, because the rest of that division is so crappy.
I mean, that helped the Bears. I think they had 3 teams that were just about in the playoffs.
Right.
So that's a huge factor.
I've got a little bit of a 2-parter here, and it revolves around San Fran, or as they say in California, San Francisco. Apparently it's a kind of like a cardinal sin to call it San Fran if you're there. So don't call it Cal, call it Californian. High maintenance Californians, evidently.
Just remember, Jel, if you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear a flower in your hair.
All-time great. Okay, so I guess my two-part question here. Let's say the Niners make the Super Bowl, they beat Philly here. And don't even think about what happens in the Super Bowl. If if somebody offers you a first-round pick for Brock Purdy, do you take it? You've already got all that capital in Trey Lance that you've invested in Trey Lance. Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft. If somebody offers you a first, do you take that?
I mean, if it was a top 10 pick for sure, but Trey Lance is an absolute unknown right now that, like we had touched on, what was it, last episode or earlier today, that yesterday with the Giants. I mean, he's got 2 years left on his deal, essentially 1 year next offseason, or the offseason after that, you're having to pick up his 5th-year option already. And
after next season, you have to make that call.
No, I don't know. I think you've seen enough. I mean, look at just the pressure situations he's been in the playoffs. And as a 7th-round Mr. Irrelevant pick, the strides that he's made since he's taken over, he's undefeated right now. And I'm not saying that he's going to be the next superstar quarterback in the league, but with Kyle Shanahan's offense, this is all you need, is what Brock Purdy is doing right now. So I don't know if I would. I think Brock Purdy's your starter and you shop Trey Lance. I don't know what you're going to get, but I don't know. And if Trey Lance, if you still want to see what he's got, the way that the quarterbacks get hurt in San Francisco, I'm not trading either of them, because you're going to need Brock Purdy or Trey Lance down the road.
So I guess that leads me to my second question, number 2 here. Okay, I'm going to also say, I'm going to agree with you. Turn down a first-round pick for Purdy. Not only is he performing extremely well, but he's also costing you like $750,000. So you can afford, that's what allows you to afford giving Nick Bosa a massive extension, allows you to continue to pay for Trent Williams, Fred Warner's big contract that he got, and potentially Kittle, Debo's big contract, and
CMC.
possibly go out and find it. Exactly. Like, and this team, if you were to be paying Purdy big money here, you're looking at a different squad. At least one of those guys is gone, and you might be looking at a completely different San Francisco team. So I'm in complete agreement. Unless it's a top 5 pick, maybe. I mean, you said top 10. Shit, if it's number 8, I don't even know if I'm going to do that, because what am I going to do at quarterback then? Then I'm stuck with Trey Lance and go get Nate Sudfeld as my backup. Like then what happens when Trey Lance goes down again? So I don't, unless it's a pick high enough where I can get a quarterback, one of the high end guys, I don't think I'm moving off of Purdy, which sounds insane in theory, given the capital that you've invested in Trey Lance, but Purdy's been awesome. So that brings me to question number 2, given that we aren't moving off of Brock Purdy. What do you mentioned? So my question is, what do you do with Trey Lance? You said you'd think about keeping him around just as a backup, but what if somebody offers you a second? What if somebody offers you a third? I don't know what it's going to take. I mean, you're going to have to move off. If you're keeping Purdy around, you're moving off of Trey eventually. They gave up a ton of draft capital to get Christian McCaffrey. They gave up a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth to get McCaffrey. So, and they gave up a ton to get Trey Lance in the building. So they're low on draft capital. They need cheap players given all those big contracts that we just named. And that's what makes Purdy just as obviously so valuable. So they need to keep reinforcing that roster with cheap players, rookies, second-year players. What is it going to take for you to move off of Trey Lance? You mentioned Tennessee on yesterday's episode as a potential landing spot. I love it.
Giants.
Oh, you said Giants. Okay. Yep. Well, I also love Tennessee, given that their director of player person, the San Francisco's, director of player personnel took over as the GM for the Titans. I think that fits ideal. I love the Giants fit. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that didn't even cross my mind. What is it going to take for one of those teams to say to offer to you, if you're John Lynch, and part ways with Trey Lance and just plow forward with Brock Purdy as your day one starter?
Yeah, it's hard because obviously Trey Lance's stock is in the toilet right now. So you're not going to get a ton from him. I mean, yeah, if somebody offered a second, I think if you're San Fran, I'd move off of him for sure. I mean, like I said, you're going to have to decide after next season what his status is going to be with your team. Brock Purdy's shown you a lot in the playoffs and shown you that he is a quarterback that's capable of running your offense and has been super productive with it as they're starting off their 3rd string quarterback on the season. But yeah, so somebody offers a 2nd round pick. I mean, another team too, that if you're the Colts, why? I mean, if somebody's not sitting there in the draft this year that you like, why? I mean, you're going to have to trade that prior to it, but if you know you're not going to get Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and you don't want a project and Will Levis, you don't want an
Well, you've got a project right now, though. But if you're saying Trey Lance, he's still a project.
Yeah, but
at this point,
yeah, I don't know.
Is Trey Lance more ready to be a starter than Will Levis?
Just injuries throw me off. I don't like Will Levis at all. I think he's going to be a bust. So that's
okay. That's well, so far Trey Lance has been a bust.
Yeah, but I
mean, we haven't seen him on the field much, but the little bit of playing time that he got, yeah, he looks dynamic at times, but he also looks like Zach Wilson at times.
Yeah. I don't know. He's an intriguing person because, like I said, a ton of quarterback needy teams. People are going to dive into the well trying to find somebody and trying to find a franchise quarterback without having to give up a ton to get into the top of the draft. And I don't know. That's kind of where I would sit with it.
Okay, Tampa has, this would be probably giving up too much. Just looking at Tampa, they got the number 19 pick. I don't think you give that up for Lance. Obviously,
No,
if you're
I
the
wouldn't
Niners,
first. For sure.
You celebrate. You shoot off fireworks at that offer.
I think a second or like a couple thirds or something like that for Lance would be, I don't know, but you don't know that John Lynch, they're the ones that traded up and drafted Trey Lance and loved him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this offseason. But like you said, I don't know how with what Purdy's done, he's not their starter next season. I don't know.
100%. 100.
All right. Any more quick ones, Joe? Probably have time for one more quick one if you got one.
I guess I've just got one final comment on Brock Purdy, which is more of an observation than a question. Just something that I want the listeners to hear. Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott have the same amount of playoff wins in their career. Holy crap! Insane.
That is insane.
Insane. What's the difference between those two guys? Purdy looked like the better quarterback that day. Back when Dak first came in as a 4th round pick under a cheap contract, he had a stud offensive line. Zeke was in his prime. They had a really nice defense. He had good skill position players. It's the same damn thing that Brock Purdy has with the Niners. Like, there's no freaking difference between and right now, Brock Purdy's playing better than Dak is now. There's no difference. They have the same amount of playoff wins. One's making $40+ million. One's making like $790K. More of an observation than a question. If you've got one more, the floor is yours.
Oh, that's a fun fact. And I guess the only thing else I'll throw out there is the fact that we get to see a nice Iowa State versus Oklahoma rematch in Brock Purdy versus Jalen Hurts on Sunday this week. So looking forward to
that. Game of the week.
Yeah, no, I agree. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Go to YouTube, type in Dead Arm Sports. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell there. That way you know when live episodes drop. Ask us questions during that live session via the chat on the right-hand side of the screen. We'll be sure to answer that. You can follow Jel at DosGel. I can be found at DosJPEG on our socials. And make sure you subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. Send us a screenshot of that review. You will get some swag. What are those platforms, Joe?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on whatever your chosen listening platform is. Take a screenshot of that written review. Send it to us on our socials at Dead Arm Sports on Twitter or Instagram. Straight to those DMs. Slide into those DMs.
Slide in like you're stealing home.
Hey, a nice clean example of sliding in. I like it. Also find us on YouTube, search Dead Arm Sports, subscribe there, hit the bell, get our notifications. Thank you very much.
All right, that'll wrap it up. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the podcast. If you could tell someone you know, that would be greatly appreciated. Otherwise, hopefully this is a fantastic weekend of football. Well, I guess I should say Sunday, no more Saturday games, but yeah, looking forward to it. And we'll be back to talk about it next week. Jel, close her out.
Shout out to the Fox announcing crew, Joe Davis, for sucking my ass. Get off my screen.